Yeah, maybe I'll just go then. This music is honestly getting on my nerves. I might just turn it off then. Oh man. Yeah, so the end of the game was a lot of fun for me, to be honest. I know, like, I think some people really didn't like it because of because of Palkia and because of Dialga, which I can understand that they were a bit ridiculous, especially Palkia. But I had a lot of fun, and I think that's mostly because they they let you just get a bunch of free figures and get whatever you want. So that was really nice because for the most part, I was free to play. So just being able to have access to everything was really, really nice. But yeah, Palkia, I guess we'll start talking about Palkia first. So where can I even start? So really, I don't know if you could say it's the best move, but definitely one of the best moves in the game, or at least meta defining, is Dawn Wings and Lunala with Moongeist Beam. Like this move is ridiculous. Move the battle opponent or one opposing Pokemon that is adjacent to the battle opponents to its PC. So really, you can answer anything that has um, you bypass any effects that go when a figure is defeated, like getting burned or getting sent to the PC, or even Dawn Wings itself can't change forms if it gets hit by Moongeist because you just moved instead of KO'd. And so, because Moongeist Beam was so prevalent, purple and having answers to purple was really important because well, basically because the most threatening figure in the game had a 2-star purple, and that was what you needed to look out for. But then Palkia comes along and Dialga with 4D Drive, which the effect is only about half of Moongeist Beam because you can only affect the battle opponent, but it's gold. And that's crazy because then you have answers to all the other purple figures in the game. And it doesn't KO, so it has the same effects. And but then you're like, oh well, it has the drawback because it does damage, so you'll get KO'd. Yes, but then Palkia's other busted effect is its ability, just being that when it's KO'd, it moves to an entry point. That's ridiculous because you gain advantage from 4D drive because your opponent loses a figure, but you don't because yours stays on the board. It gains weight, it goes back a little bit, yeah, but that's honestly not a problem at all. And Palkia can just push forward super aggressively. It's ridiculous. And so Palkia, Dawnwings, um, in my opinion, are the top two figures in the entire game. I think Dawnwings is a little bit better, just because it can move through. It has the option to Ultra, and it has the better Z move. Because Menacing Moonrays Maelstrom is the best Z move in the game, honestly, in my opinion. But I'm pretty sure that's really accurate, and I don't know that you can argue anything else. Just being able to remove anything for 7 turns, and when it comes back, it has weight 3. I forgot about that. Oh wait, no, 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 it's sorry, I misread that. Opposing Pokemon adjacent. That's right. Which that effect is also really good because then you can remove the goalie, and if there's something next to it, it can't take the goal after that. It's ridiculous. Dawn Wings also has a second life, and it keeps its position, unlike Palkia. Absolutely insane. And I'm not sure if this is true or not, or I would have to think about it, but I think at the moment I'm saying Garchomp is is like the third best figure. Really, really prevalent at the end of the game. Um, it getting Sandvale is amazing, but it's mega. really really just sort of took it over. Like if its mega wasn't as good, yes, Sandvale is great, especially on a strong figure that has Tectonic Rage. But the mega, man, this is ridiculous. It moves through other Pokemon. It also has Sandvale, but it also burns when it does that, and has the Rayquaza effect with getting rid of blue attacks. That's crazy. That's so crazy. This is such a threat. It's so annoying because you can't attack into it because they just hop over and then you get burned. It's absolutely insane. And so like the three things that these things the wow words. The one thing that all three of these figures have in common is movement effects. And who deals with movement effects? Mawile. So the deck that I was using at the end of the game, oh, I can't get the EX one from there, was triple Mawile, Stack Attacka, and then of course I was using Dawn Wings and Palkia of my own because it just made every deck better. Where are you? But Mawile, man, this figure. Now, it was really good when it first came out as well. I only had one Mawile at that point. I only got 3 after they gave away all the free figures at the end. But opposing Pokemon next to this Pokemon cannot be moved by the abilities or attacks of opposing Pokemon. Abilities or attacks. So this figure can't move, or the battle opponent can't be moved, and this figure cannot be moved by attacks. So just that alone, it can't be moved by Moongeist, it can't be moved by 4D Drive, Palkia can't move to the entry point if it gets KO'd, Garchomp can't jump over you with its ability. That's great. That's great. But then you look at its wheel and you're like, oh, well, you know, Trickery into Sucker Punch is very good, but you lose to Z moves, you lose to Garchomp, Mega Garchomp. What do? Well, I mentioned it earlier, I was running Stack Attacka. Now this isn't like foolproof or anything, but it lasted long enough to be effective enough for me to win before it became a problem. But Stack Attacka, until the end of this Pokemon's first battle after moving to the field, the blue attacks of your Steel-type Pokemon are not lost from the effects of abilities or Z-moves. Abilities or Z-moves. So no Garchomp, no Z-move. So what I would do is just basically just Air Balloon and throw Stack Attack in the back and just keep him there the entire game and just pester my opponent with these 3 Mawile into the Mega Mawile, which is really, really strong. And it's hard to answer. Where are you? It's hard to answer because most people, their win condition, or at least what makes their figures really good, is all the movement effects. 4D Drive, Moongeist Beam, and Garchomp moving over stuff. But also, Mega Mawile says plates cannot be used on opposing Pokemon next to this Pokemon. That means if you're next to a Garchomp, they can't Mega, they can't Air Balloon. If you're next to a Palkia, they can't Air Balloon. If you're next to a Dawn Wings, they can't Ultra Burst. That's great. That's amazing. That shuts down so much. Not only does it shut down all these movement effects, but also plates on those figures. And this is a really strong figure as well. So the Iron Head hits for 190. The Sucker Punch hits for 140. I don't think I have chains on anything. Maybe I put like 1 chain level. I didn't have too many UX cubes. But just the fact that you have such a strong figure that negates basically everything your opponent's strongest figures want to do is absolutely insane. And like I said, like Stack Attacka, if it got attacked, yeah, you lose the ability. Your blues are now susceptible, but that's only if they have another Garchomp or they have their Z move ready. and that doesn't always happen. I was also going to show, I don't have it open, hold on. I was going to show sort of like what happens with the game with that deck. Here we go. So it wasn't perfect. I think the early game is sort of where it's weakest because your stack attacker can get attacked on turn 2 basically, but only if your opponent's being really aggressive, which most people wouldn't be. Come on, waiting on this to open. No one else is here. That's fine. I'm just rambling. That's the other nice thing is because you ignore movement, you're not worried about rush at all. Keldeo doesn't scare mawile. Like mawile is honestly just a perfect counter to Keldeo. You don't get moved to the bench by Hydro Kick, and you don't get jumped over by Water Jump. Hold on, it's hard for me to do this and talk at the same time. Okay. No. Accidentally minimize it. Okay. So let's pull up this. This is a mess. Okay. See if I can turn off. No. Okay, I'll leave the menu there. So usually if I'm going first, I always want Stack Attacker in the back. So if I'm going first, I mean, it also depends on what my opponent is running, but if I go first, I Air Balloon. Oh, this is not right. Pencil, let's get blue. I Air Balloon and put Stack Attacker here. And then of course, usually the opponent comes out with like, well, I guess if they're going second, then they usually set up with Dawn Wings or something, like maybe they bring Dawn Wings here. And so like at this point I'm kind of in a bind already, because my stack attack is vulnerable really early on, and this is why going second is actually pretty hard, and just the early game in general, because if my opponent leads with, well, I guess usually they would go here, right? They lead with their 3MP, and then I bring out Stack Attack here, and so I'm immediately sort of at a disadvantage, because I'm just sort of reacting to, you know, they move here, and then I have to move Stack Attack onto the goal, and they could just attack it immediately. Most people don't because they don't want to lose a figure right away. But if my opponent knows what I'm doing and they know, like if they're running a Garchomp deck and they know that Stack Attacka is sort of my condition against their Garchomps, then maybe it would be smart to attack here. So if if someone is playing against me, once this remake finally comes out and I'm using this team, because I probably will when it first comes out, because I love this team. But if you're playing me and you have a Garchomp deck, or maybe, you know, some Palkia, hopefully we only have one Palkia, I really hope so. But it might be smart to attack the Stack Attacker right away, especially because the only figure I have that can even be 3MP is Dawn Wings, and that's if I spin the Ultra Burst. That is another really nice thing about the deck that I was using is, let me bring it up actually. Ultra Necrozma. So Reflect Move, if there are any other Ultra Beasts on the field, you may move over its battle opponent. So, I mean, usually your opponent does have a Dawn Wings at least, and that counts as Ultra Beast. At least it should. I'm quite certain it does. Yes. But if their Dawn Wings is not on the field, then I can at least meet that condition myself by having Stack Attacka on the field. So I do always have, or basically always have, the option to Reflect Move. And so then, like, that's another really threatening thing about this deck, and really any deck that's using Dawn Wings, is that pencil, is that if I bring Dawn Wings here, then I have the chance to Ultra Burst and move up 1, 2, 3, and if there's a figure right here, Reflect Move can win me the game in 2 turns. You know, move out here, Ultra, Reflect Move, game. Like, that's pretty ridiculous. I don't think I ever pulled that off. Mostly because I hardly would Ultra Burst, because I really didn't need to with the Mawiles. But just the threat of that was crazy. And so, like, usually what I'm doing is just running around, like, I've got Mawiles, you know, blocking my opponent's Garchomps and Palkias and stuff. And usually my Palkia gets blocked as well. And Dawn Wings is the only thing I have that can move over stuff. But that's also fine. So usually, most people know, new players struggle with this. Oh, I accidentally did it again. New players struggle with this, but most people know in Pokemon Duel, you really don't go for attacks on your turn, or you shouldn't most of the time, because I need this back up. It's just way too risky, right? Because if my opponent if my opponent is right here, and you know I came out on my turn right here, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go for the attack, and if I'm right here and I KO this figure, they can just re-block, and I don't really gain much. But if I'm knocked out, they get to move up at least 2 spaces, sometimes 3, and they're threatening the goal at that point. So really, a lot of the times, it's not wise to attack on your turn, unless your opponent doesn't gain too much from it. I mean, you have to attack eventually. But that's why you need figures that either have a low chance of losing or don't mind losing. And I think examples of both of that is Dawn Wings. Well, the first example is Dawn Wings, is that it doesn't lose a lot, especially on its first battle, because it negates gold. So very rarely is Dawn Wings actually going to lose on its first battle. It's very unlikely. It can happen. Yes, maybe hit Prismatic Laser into a high damage attack or something. But a lot of times you at least either go even or plus, and then Dawn Wings can jump over the next turn. And then the other example is Palkia, in that it doesn't mind attacking because you don't lose advantage when Palkia is KO'd. And so, like, there's very few figures. If your opponent gives you, like, the correct matchups from their perspective, then it should be hard for you to attack into stuff. But some figures don't mind that. And I think Mega Mawile is also one of those kind of figures. One of those kinds. Especially when Stack Attack is on the field, because you have so much, you do so much damage. Like, even just your Play Rough does 170. Like, that's very high. That's really high. And funny thing, you do actually have to worry about Palkia if you're doing that. Um, I don't think I ever really considered that actually. If you have at least one chain level on both of your play roughs, you shouldn't have to worry, because most people wouldn't have chain levels on Spatial Rend. They would put it on 4D drive, or at least I saw most people do that. I guess that is something to worry about though. But because you can't be moved and your opponent can't move, and you do so much damage, and you have the option of landing on blue and not moving to Iron Head or Sucker Punch, Mega Mawile and Mawile itself are very safe attackers. And they're pretty safe to attack into Dawnwings as well. Somewhat. You at least aren't afraid of Moongeist Beam, and if you land Trickery, you're fine. And so usually I would have to attack Dawnwings as early as I can to get rid of its ability. I keep doing this. I'm accidentally shaking the screen and minimizing everything. Oh, I need some water. I'm not used to talking this much. Maybe I'll turn the music back on. Yeah, I like this song. I don't really know what else to say. So Stack Attacker was kind of the crutch of that deck. But like even if I lost Stack's ability, like I still have Dawnwings, I can still Ultra Burst, and I still have Palkia, and Mawile is fine on its own. Because like I said, you really only worry about Z moves and a Mega Garchomp. Now Garchomp you kind of always have to worry about, but Z moves, you only have to worry about it when they're up. And like that takes time, and so you have time in between them to pressure your opponent while they don't have a Z move. And I was running Max Revive as well, so you know I've got Palkia and I've got Max Revive, so maintaining advantage isn't too hard either. Maybe I rambled enough about that team. I love it though. I think it's great, and like Stack Attacker is not bad itself, honestly. Trick Room, the only thing I don't like about Stack Attacker, other than the fact that it's 1 MP, which is fine because it really just stayed in the back the whole time, but the fact that it had Trick Room would kind of mess me up because, you know, I'm using Palkia, so I'll miss out on 4D drive. I'm using Mawile, and essentially the biggest wheel slice I have is Sucker Punch. And then of course I can't really go to Ultra Necrozma if Trick Room is up, because then I'm only 1 MP and I have a huge miss. But it didn't come up too much. I don't think I had Stack at level 10, but I think if I did, I would have just put everything into Ultra Wall and reduced the Trick Room. Now it would hurt my opponent as well, because a lot of people had Arceus, a lot of people of course had their own Palkia. But it didn't help me that much. It mostly just hurt me if I got Trick Room. That's the other thing I should have mentioned about Mawile, is just the fact that it has incredible Z moves. Like even if just straight up attacking isn't good enough for you, you have Twinkle Tackle, so you can answer a Dawnwings without KOing it, which is it's great. And then of course you have Corkscrew Crash, Since mawile can't move through figures, corkscrew crash really helps you push your positioning forward a little bit. So like if I have mawile here, I corkscrew crash into this figure, then I can move either here or here, probably here. I mean, unless things are going on, but I can either seal the entry point or threaten goal off of just that. And then of course you can, the typical play where your opponent's here and you corkscrew crash. Really just great stuff. And one of the other things I really liked about Palkia is just it's crazy how I don't think it would really ever come up, but I think it would be funny if you got a surround with Palkia's ability taking it to an entry point. I'm pretty sure it was random which entry point it went to. I can't recall. I'd have to look at a video to make sure, but that would have been funny to see a Palkia get KO'd and then surround something when it goes to the entry point. Let's clear all this off. Okay, I'll talk about something else now then. Since I saw it, I kind of want to talk about Zygarde. So, I don't know. Really the only channel I watched. I watched some of K-Dub for a while, but Rico was mainly the channel that I watched for Pokemon Duel. And I think he wasn't like unimpressed with Zygarde, but I think him and a lot of other people sort of maybe I shouldn't assume this, but it did seem like maybe some people weren't using Zygarde to what I thought it could do. So let's look at. Can I get to it from here? Yes. So let's look at 10% first. So right off the bat, this is really rare. And actually, I don't know how many figures have this. So it's a 3MP ground type. Yeah, literally 2 other figures, neither of which people would use. Really early on you might see Pupitar. Not much though. And basically no one used Landorus. I want to talk about the genies some too. That might be next time though. But Zygarde is it's a 3MP ground type. That's incredible because you have a really mobile figure that has access to Tectonic Rage. Now it can't MP move through other stuff, and that's that's sort of a downfall. Most people wouldn't run a deck without at least one sort of Shuppet figure to move through stuff. Zygarde can't do that. However, if we look at its ability, if your Pokemon fill either your PC or your opponent's PC, this Pokemon may change its form to Zygarde complete form without moving to the PC when it is knocked out. And that's kind of, it's a little strange, because it's not like other Second Life abilities like the Primals or Dawn Wings or Duskmane, where just no matter what, if you're KO'd, you get to change forms. This has to be when you have 2 figures in your PC and or your opponent's PC. Well, not and or, but or. Anyway. So, but it's a 3MP ground type with a second life. And what does that second life get you? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. I want to finish looking at this figure. So just that alone is really incredible, because this is a runner that can take out stuff, and it also has a very large gold, and 1,000 Arrows is a very good move. It's very good. All opposing Pokemon on the field spin, those that spin purple are knocked out, and like this is way better. This is what this is what Zygarde 50% needs, or what it wanted. It has Land's Wrath, all other Pokemon on the field spin, and you have to use the plate to make it only the battle opponent. But zygarde 10% just does the opponent straight away. And so like you can get a lot of value. Like you can get a bunch of KOs with zygarde 10% if you land 1,000 arrows, because like I said earlier, way earlier, purple is what's going on in the game. Or at least some of the most threatening figures. Dawnwing's the best figure in the game, has mostly purple on its wheel. And I'm pretty sure if it gets KO'd from 1,000 arrows, it can't change forms. If it's KO'd from a distance, at least. Because that's sort of like what Draco Meteor does as well. Oh man, I really need some more water. So yeah, you have extreme speed, which and this is also a pretty decent answer to Celebi, which was probably the most prevalent runner in the game. Where are you? And it's pretty annoying because you have Grass Knot, any attack 120 or higher, it's a reverse KO. And both of 10%'s attacks deal with that. And you also have extreme speed to take out the energy ball. So like this is a runner that's actually fairly threatening in terms of offense as well, because if your opponent attacks into this and you land 1,000 arrows, like they can potentially lose multiple figures. That's the same thing with why I absolutely love and ran forever Primal Kyogre, because any move like this, like Origin Pulse or like 1,000 Arrows, that can remove multiple figures even during your opponent's turn, that's incredibly strong. And like your opponent always has to be aware of this, because let me pull up the map again. Let's say my Kyogre or my Zygarde is on the goal, and I also have a figure, you know, my runner is up here, or just something anywhere threatening the goal. And they're like, oh, but I have, you know, I have this figure and I have this figure. So they're like, okay, I'm going to attack your Primal Kyogre with something right here, or even your Zygarde 10%. If they do that, and if you land Origin Pulse or if you land 1,000 Arrows, then like this figure right here can just get KO'd or removed from the field. It's essentially the same kind of threat that you get with Tapu Fini and Pony Wish. You always have to be aware that attacking into it can just lose you the game. Like maybe you're threatening, maybe you're winning, but if you attack this figure, you can essentially just lose the game right there. Because if I hit 1,000 arrows and you get knocked out, then I just move over, or maybe I corkscrew crash. That's insane. That's great value, and I think too many people overlooked. I mean, maybe they didn't, but I think a lot of people overlooked the fact that this figure has all of that. Big gold, multi-KO, board-wide move, potentially of course, 3 MP and Tectonic Rage. And it has a second life. And let's get to that now. When you form change into Zygarde Complete, its ability activates right away. Let's see, this Pokemon can only be set as a form in a deck. The ability of the Pokemon that battles this Pokemon is nullified while it's on the field. Nullified. Also, when it's knocked out, it's excluded and goes back to being 10%. That's really bad. first off, that's really bad. However, you at least get, if you form change, you at least get that first activation. Because your Zygarde 10% gets KO'd, but it stays on the field, changes into this monster of a figure, I have to say, and and your opponent's ability is nullified. So that means if they, well, maybe Dawn Wings isn't a good example because it might Moongeist beam you. Well, I mean, you know, potentially. But regardless, let's say maybe, okay, yeah. Here's a good example of a figure that's very prevalent. Maybe we'll talk about this next time as well, because I'm probably going to stop soon. Let's say I have Zygarde 10% right here, and we'll just assume that my PC is full. So I have Zygarde there, and my opponent attacks it from range with Aegislash. Now, when I'm KO'd, I stay on the field, and I change into complete form. And this Aegislash now has its ability nullified, which means, oh, I don't need to bring it up. You should know what Aegislash does, which means it's a 0 MP figure that normally other figures can move over, but now they can't because its ability is nullified, and it can't change forms. During my opponent's turn, that happened. So now they have this useless figure that as long as I stay away from it, my opponent, it's stuck there, and my opponent can't do anything with it. The only way it can go back is if they scoop up, if they, I don't know, Pokemon Switch, or if they get KO'd or they hit King Shield. Which, yes, that's a lot of options, but most of those you have control over. Most people don't run Scoop Up outside of an Alakazam deck, which probably doesn't have Aegislash. Maybe it would. Let's... I don't want to listen to this. Let's go back to this one. So yeah, now your opponent just has a useless figure sitting here. They can't do anything with it, and you have Zygarde complete form on the board. Now maybe this isn't the best position for it, because as you can see, Zygarde only has 1 MP, which sucks. It does really suck. If you're running Dragon Sphere, that's fine, but the thing is you don't have to run Dragon Sphere with Zygarde. Like, just like Dawn Wings and Kyogre, you don't have to change forms when it's KO'd. And I think a lot of times you probably wouldn't, unless you already have Dragon Sphere active, or you know that like the game is stalling and you have time to activate it. But I would say most of the time you probably just, you know, like Rico would say, you take the L. You would take the L and just let Zygarde get KO'd without changing forms, because you don't need to. But where it is really good is in a situation like this. Like, let's say your opponent has a goalie here, and I have Zygarde 10%. You know, he's running around. He's a 3 MP figure, and I have Tectonic Rage available. So I come up right here, and I Tectonic Rage and get rid of... Maybe I'll just do this. I Tectonic Rage and I get rid of the goalie. And you're like, oh, well now, you know, they can come up and they can Z-move me back. Like, they might Tectonic Rage, you know, maybe they have a really strong attacker or something, like a mawile of their own or something. Something that can KO this. And like, this is essentially... Not essentially, it's a little bit worse, but it's kind of the same idea as doing a Tectonic Rage against the goalie with Vibrava, because or even Z-moving with Dawn Wings, because this is a figure with 2 lives that's right here right now. So your opponent has to move it. They can't KO it, they have to move it with like Twinkle Tackle or Moongeist Beam or Menacing Moon Rays. And all of those are somewhat likely. But either if they don't have one of those Z moves in range, or if they just don't have their Z move at all, they can't deal with this. Because this is here now, and if they KO it, you get to change forms and take the goal. Like that's another really beneficial thing that Dawn Wings has, that this figure has. This one 3MP figure has so many things. Wait, it was like 5 points that I listed. Big gold, board wide potential KO move, 2 lives, Tectonic Rage. What was the other thing I said? Maybe that was it. 3MP, big gold, 1,000 arrows, Tectonic Rage, and 2 lives. Maybe I said something twice. I don't know. Four or 5 things that this one figure does that most figures don't have. That's insane. And we may as well look at Zygarde Complete's wheel, because it's ridiculous. Now, yes, if it gets KO'd, it leaves. That's why I said most of the time you probably don't want to change forms. But if you do, I would say if you change forms outside of a situation like this, or the Aegislash one, then hopefully you either already have Dragon Sphere up. Even if you don't, I would say you probably shouldn't change forms unless your opponent doesn't have access to their Z move for a few turns, because that's sort of the main way your opponent can answer something like this, is with a Z move. And you don't want this KO'd. And I think that's one thing I think a lot of people maybe not overestimated, but it was definitely sort of their focus, is that you have a second life, but this figure gets excluded when it's KO'd, and that is very bad. That's very bad. I think Tyrantrum has that as well. But it is hard to KO for the most part. And like I said, it's optional. It's optional. But anyway, 1,000 Waves. 1,000 Waves is a little bit worse than 1,000 Arrows, because it doesn't affect flying types. However, it does also give opposing Pokemon on the bench weight 3, which I don't know. I didn't use Zygarde a whole lot, so I don't think I ever had a situation where that came up. And I don't think many people... I didn't see too many people playing Zygarde. I definitely want to play it more in the remake. Hopefully I can. Because I think this figure has a lot of potential. I mean a lot, because Zygarde 10%, man, I can't get over how good this figure is, honestly. And I think a lot of it was sort of overlooked just because of this one sentence. When this Pokemon is knocked out, it's excluded. But yeah, I mean, 200 damage, 1,000 Waves. You know, Glare is pretty good. It's all right. It's 2-star at least, which is it's sort of the minimum you need. Because if it's a 1-star, you lose to Moongeist or Photon Geyser. And then a huge damage, extreme speed. I think, yeah, this is the highest damage gold attack in the game. Not that it matters like that much, but obviously you want as high damage as you can get. Yeah, I guess obviously you have to watch out for Celebi. That's kind of that's always the asterisk next to big damage figures, is watch out for Celebi. Yeah, man. Now that I looked at it and analyzed it like this, I really want to play Zygarde now. Like, I really want to play it. And the thing is, like, this doesn't have to be your only runner. You can still have a Shuppet figure. And, you know, like I said, in the deck that I was talking about before, the only figure I had that moved through stuff was Dawnwings. And I didn't even have a 3MP figure outside of Ultra Necrozma. So, like, it's not that necessary. As long as your deck's strengths make up for that loss. You don't have to have a Shuppet. You probably should have a Shuppet, but you don't have to. Yeah. This is fun. I think I'm probably going to stop now. No one really showed up. One person did. And some people sort of dropped in and out, but I think that was mostly my subscribers. They thought it might be something to do with Monster Hunter. Sorry. I was going to do this on Twitch, but I was signed out of my account, and I can't sign back in because it won't email me the code to do that. So, I don't know. Twitch is ridiculous anyway, so this is probably better for me. Yeah, I guess I would like to do this again. I know no one's watching, but that's okay. This is fun for me anyway. So I'll definitely do this again and just talk about some more figures, because I really think there's a bunch of figures that were underused or maybe overlooked a little bit. Now I'm not like an expert, and I can't prove that, you know, these figures are top tier or anything. That's not what I'm trying to do. Really, I'm just rambling because I love this game so much. I just love to talk about it. But I think it's just really interesting to look at figures that not many people use, and, you know, maybe think about why, but also think about what they can be used for, and why I think they're actually pretty good. We'll also talk about some more busted stuff as well. We talked a little bit about Palkia. Could have talked more about Palkia, honestly. We might do that next time too. And Dawnwings. Although I'm sure there probably isn't much that hasn't been said about Dawnwings. But we can go over it anyway. Yeah, I guess that's it. I'll go ahead and end the stream now then.